Footwork settings, 2 red springs. We're going to start focusing on mobilization and articulation of the spine today. So the first thing I want to do is come up into elephant position. So the foot bar is all the way up, your hands are on the foot bar, and then you stand up with your heels flat against the shoulder rest, pressing down through the legs. So I want you to feel like you're stretching your lower back up to the ceiling. The goal is not that you move the carriage. It's just that you kind of hollow out your abdomen like a greyhound belly. You're scooping the abdomen out. You're pressing through the arms. And then from there, I want you to bend your knees and try to lengthen from tail to head to neutral. So this is going to be dependent on how long your hamstrings are, how tight your back is. And then you push down through the heels, press the legs towards straight, scoop the lower back up towards the ceiling. Yes. And then bend the knees to allow the pelvis to slide through. This is a little bit like push your bar at the Cadillac with the cat stretch standing, pressing through the heels, rounding the lower back up, scoop out the abdomen like a greyhound belly, and then from tail to head, lengthen out to one long line. And last time, press the lower back up towards the ceiling, scoop up through the abdomen. Stay in this cat back shape, really hollowing out the abdomen. Push the carriage back from the top of the hamstrings and pull it back in. So as you're staying here in this rounded back shape, if your lower back is a little bit tight, you might feel some stretch through the lower back just to be here. Trying to feel the top 2 inches of the hamstrings and glutes where they connect. And as you're pressing back, if you want to see if it helps to lift the toes a little bit, so you're emphasizing the press coming from the sits bones down through the back of the leg and out through the heel. Good. Keeping the shoulders connected, trying to keep rounding through the spine. The torso isn't moving. Yeah, last one. Bring the carriage back in. Step 1 foot forward. If this ends up being too heavy, you can always switch to 1.5 springs. So 1 foot's forward, 1 foot's back. You're going to press out and you're going to let the back calf heel stay down so the back calf stretches. And then as you come back in, you're going to bend the back leg and try to straighten the front leg. And as you press out, the front leg bends, the back leg straightens. And as you come in, back knee bends, front leg straightens. So as you do this a couple times, you can start to make it a little smoother so that you're connecting to the glute. And each time the carriage comes in, you're trying to stretch through the front leg. As you press out, you're stretching through the back leg. Spine is just in a comfortable kind of rounded position, not a real specific position, but should be relatively comfortable. One more time. Just trying to get the ankles moving a little bit. Step that foot back. The other foot comes forward. Bend the front leg to push the carriage back, stretching through that back heel. And then the carriage comes in. Push and pull. Making it nice and smooth, staying as centered as possible. If this is way too tight for you and you can't do this, then I would say you'd need that accessory board, the trampoline or the jump board, to be able to get your hands up higher off the ground. And spending more time kind of opening up your calves would help a lot. So before class, maybe rolling on the foam roller, or after, if you have more time after. One more. And then come all the way back in. Set your knees down. And we're going to put the foot bar all the way down to the flat position and bring your hands to a comfortable place on the wooden platform area. Knees can be wherever they need to be under your hips. Feet can be towards the middle or a little bit apart, whatever is more comfortable. Find neutral spine and round your back up towards the ceiling, scooping up through your lower back. Rounding the spine, pressing the floor away, scooping up, inhale, stay there. And then from tail to head, lengthen back out to one long line. And again, round the pelvis under, roll through the lower back. Try not to shift your weight back so your shoulders are still over your wrist today. And then from tail to head, you lengthen back out and you lift the sternum. So you can go into a little bit of upper back extension, but not the bottom ribs sinking and the lower back extending. One more time, rounding your back up towards the ceiling and then lengthening back out to your one long line. Rock your hips a little bit side to side so you're bringing one shoulder towards the hip on the same side. And so we did our cat back. Now we're doing, so that's flexion extension, and we're doing lateral flexion now. And then I want you to try to combine those planes of motion. So if there were pencils on your sits bones, you'd be making a circle, pushing the floor away, going through your cat, going through the side bend, going through a little extension, and making it a nice fluid circle. As we're moving around, we're trying to get all the little nooks and crannies of the spine and the torso that might be tight, moving a little bit. One more time. Reverse the direction when you're done with that one. Side bend, extension, side bend, flexion, smoothing it out. You're moving through honey, nice and thick, kind of yawn quality. Two more. And then come back in. Sit back towards your heels. Just stretch your arms forward. Round your back up towards the ceiling. And feel like you're scooping your belly away from the floor. And then you can release back to kind of laying on your thighs. And do that again. So you scoop your belly up. It curls your pelvis under. Your hands slide a little towards you because you're really lifting the lower back up. And then you lengthen back out. Twice more like that. Round the pelvis under, scoop and pull yourself up, and lengthen back out. And last one, scoop, pull yourself up. You should feel a big stretch through the low spine. And then lengthening back out. All right, so from here, we're gonna switch to the half spring. And get a block or a ball to put underneath your head. You're going to take the strap off the front shoulder rest, lay all the way down on your side. Some of these exercises we've been working on stability, and so we're gonna continue with these ideas. So you're gonna put the top foot in the strap, hips are stacked, shoulders stacked, ribs stacked. You're trying to not let the waist collapse onto the carriage. Start with reaching the leg forward, keeping it straight, and then connect to the sit bone. Just like with your elephant, you want that lengthening of the hamstrings and then connecting right at the top of the hamstring where the glute and the hamstrings meet, the gluteal fold kind of area. As your leg goes forward, you're checking in with the front of that hip joint, making sure that you get that deep crease in the front of the hip. Deep crease in the front of the hip. Connect to the glute to press back. And do that a couple more times. You can make this as easy or as hard as you want based on if you're kind of muscling through it or trying to find these connections. And pressing back one more time, deep crease in the front of the hip, and press the leg back. Flex the foot, turn the knee and the toe down, and then circling in front of the shoulder rest so you're not hitting yourself in the face. With your leg forward of the shoulder rest, it's going to give you a little bit more abdominal work as well. And you might feel the bottom hip working as well to keep you stable. Good. We're just going up, back, and around. And I'm only going to go this direction, so up, back, and around. Some of you are going the other way. So like Grace and Dana reverse. Yeah, Dana, that's right. Because it's easier to find that connection of the back of the hip. Yes. Try to turn your knee and your toe down. Last two. And last one. And then bring the leg into tabletop and just 6 times pushing it out, feeling that alignment so you're not letting it wobble in or out, bending in from sit bone out through the back of the leg, you push to the heel. Bending in, push from the sit bone out through the back of the leg. And bending in, push through the back of the leg. 2 more. And last one. And then bend the leg back in, take your foot out of the strap, put the strap in your hand. If you have the strap, if like your hand is right above your shoulder, that's a good place. If you have more mobility and you'd like to fold the strap up a little higher, you can do this and it would be a pretty easy way to transition. So either top leg reaching out or both legs reaching out and you're stacked. Arm is slightly in front of vertical so that you're in your line of scaption. Legs are trying to hover up the whole time. As you press down, you're connecting to the back of the shoulder. So if you feel tons of pec working, then see if you can get the back of the shoulder to turn on before you pull. Not super heavy, but it should feel like you're working. Definitely some work through the torso to stay stable and stacked. Good. I'm gonna do 3 more. Keeping the legs lifted, you should feel a little bit of hip work happening here. And then take the arm and bend the elbow, bringing the fist forward and press back to your hip. So triceps staying wide across the front of the collarbone. Each time you straighten your elbow, straighten it all the way to straight so that you feel the bottom of your tricep near the elbow pulling up towards the shoulder joint. Nice. Last 2. And last 1. And then bring your arm forward and you're gonna stay there with that strap, but you're gonna come up to kneeling facing the back of the reformer. So when we're kneeling towards the pulley, we have to be really careful not to fall over. So this is light, so just keep that in mind. Hold on the rope in a place where you don't have to lean forward to grab. So somewhere near the metal clip is probably where you're at. Open across the collarbone, pull up on the front of the abs, connect the glutes, and then small press back from the top of the shoulder and reach forward. Whatever is helpful with the other arm is fine with me. So you're wide across the collarbone, you're trying to connect to the back of the shoulder so that as you're moving, you're keeping the tricep in focus here. Obviously, if kneeling doesn't work, you always have the option to sit when we're kneeling or to kneel when we're sitting. Good, keep pulling up on the abs. Nice. And then one more time, hold the arm back there, open across the collarbone and pulse from the very top of your tricep. I want it to have that feeling of like your elephant exercise where you're moving from the top of the limb, you're finding those first inch or two connection of those muscles connected to the upper arm. Keep the elbow really straight to help you engage tricep. 3, 2, should feel some glutes working, and 1. And then bring the carriage back in. So now don't turn straight to the side. This is an unusual position. I want you slightly on a diagonal. So you're slightly on a diagonal versus straight forward. Still, it's very light. Hold on with the outside hand, the hand closer to the foot bar, and then loop the other hand in. Stabilize your pelvis. So your whole body is rotated, like Ginge, move your pelvis as well. Yeah, there we go. And now rotate your upper body towards the foot bar direction. You'll feel that it's a little bit of a different challenge. If the rope is too long or it feels a little too light, you can move a little towards the foot bar, but you're on this diagonal, you have to really work to stabilize. And you're trying to go from straight in front of you, more or less, into rotation. Trying to feel the pelvis really vertical, using your abdominals the whole time, stabilizing the pelvis against the rotation. Yeah, nice. 2 more. And when you're done with that, you're going to put that strap down and you're going to turn all the way to face the side and grab the strap that's more behind you. You're doing the same exercise. So hold on with the outside arm first, wrap the other hand in, and then go into your rotation. We're trying to find a little bit more of that oblique connection, feel more of those diagonals of the oblique fibers. So it should feel like you get some of that sense of rotation and diagonal through the torso. Nice. Exhaling as you rotate. Last two. And last one. And then the strap is going to stay in the inside arm, the pulley arm. If it's too heavy, move a little towards the shoulder rest. You're going to hold your elbow up. You're going to rotate and punch across your body and then bend back in. Like I said, you can adjust the resistance by just shifting a little towards the shoulder rest or away from the shoulder rest. Find that connection of the back of the shoulder before you move. Connect to the back of the shoulder and then move. And then I want you to take the other arm across that diagonal. So you're reaching on the same diagonal you were kneeling a little while. You're just going to be pushing your arm horizontally open as you rotate. And you'll feel like you can get a lot further because you have a little bit more lever length to help you. You can be creative with that arm. If it bends or straightens, I'm fine with that. You're just trying to add rotation, but stay on your axis. Make sure you're stable. Don't lean to the pulley direction. That's when I start to get nervous. One more. And then come back to the center. This is the strap you need to lay on your side. So come to laying on your side, facing away from the, facing the back, basically. And once you're laying on your side, you've got your top foot in the strap, pressing your leg out, stack your shoulders, your ribs, your hips, deep crease in the front of the hip. So as your leg goes forward, I want you to lengthen through the back of the hamstring. Put your fingers right at your sit bone area. As you press back, you should feel that kind of lift of the glute. As the leg goes forward, you should also feel something happening there. So if nothing's happening in either direction, then we've got a little bit of problem, and most likely it's the hip flexors and the quads trying to do this motion for you. So use the heel of your hand to kind of scoop as the leg goes forward, so you're at the front of the hip, and then transfer your hand to the back of the hip to press back. Scooping or creasing at the front of the hip, shoulders, ribs, and hips are all stacked, and starting to find that flow without using much momentum. Connect to the glute to press back. Deep crease in the front of the hip and press the leg back. And deep crease in the front of the hip. Connect to the glute to press back. One more time. Then our leg goes out on the diagonal. You flex your foot, turn your knee and your toe down. Your leg's gonna go up, back, and around, up, back, and around. And I've noticed that a lot of times people aren't lowering their leg. Your leg needs to come down towards the rail and then go up. If you leave it up the whole time, it's a little easier because you don't have to lengthen and shorten that muscle. But that's where we get those longer, leaner muscles we want, is by working into a lengthening and a shortening muscle contraction. Up, back, and around. We did a million on the other side, so a couple more. Might be harder on the second side because you've already worked the first side. 3 more. And last one. And then the leg goes to parallel, bend and stretch, come into tabletop, push from right under the sit bone, press your leg back out. Deep crease in the front of the hip, bend, push from under the sit bone back out. Deep crease, fold at the front of the hip, press back out. You can also open your fingers, open your hand, and put it on your lower back and just see if you feel like that crease is maintained. We have one more. Last time. Good. And then bend your leg, take your foot out of the strap, either the top leg extended out over the bar or both legs holding onto the loop, or you can kind of fold the loop over and have the arm slightly in front of vertical and press the arm down along the side, trying to connect into the back of the shoulder. So again, not muscling through, but trying to find those deep connections through the back of your shoulder, girdle, pressing down along the side, lifting back up. 4 more. Keep connected through the back of the arm. The whole time you're moving, you're checking in with where you're feeling this and what's working, what's stabilizing. So our scapula muscles are dynamically stabilizing here. Last one, well, the limb is actually moving. And then the arm comes down along the side, stay there. Bend your elbow and straighten your elbow. Bending and straightening. So you're doing your tricep press, pushing through the arm, bending in. From the back of the upper arm, you press back out, shoulders open, bend in and press. We have 3 more. Bend and press and bend. One more time for good measure. And then you're gonna keep the strap in your hands, carefully bring the carriage in, kind of slide your legs back underneath you. Come up onto your kneeling position, kneeling facing the pulleys. Again, this is the more dangerous kind of position that we're doing. People fall from here. Hopefully not all the time, but I have seen it quite a bit. So you have to move really slow and controlled. So you're holding up only as far as you can, keep vertical pelvis, connect the sits bones, and then dragging the arm back from the top of the shoulder girdle. Try not to take the arm further forward because you're trying to get more resistance so that you have to lean forward to grab. That's part of the problem with the falling over. If you need more resistance, you're always welcome to adjust, add that quarter spring if you need to. So wide across the collarbone, vertical through the pelvis, sits bones are connected, pressing back and reaching back forward and pressing back. One more time. Press the arm back, hold it back there, and just do that little small pulse. Check in with your shoulder, make sure your shoulder's open across the collarbone. And as you do that little pulse, you're keeping the back of the shoulder working, ribs connected, pressing. 4, 3, 2, and last one, and reaching back forward. Then we kneel on this diagonal, so we're kneeling towards the shoulder rest diagonal and holding on with the outside arm first, then taking the other hand in and doing your rotation. So it's gonna feel lighter to start. It doesn't need to be a huge range of motion. It doesn't need to be heavy. You're just trying to find some of your oblique muscles. So if it feels like it's too long, that's okay. You can adjust towards the foot bar a little carefully, but you also will get a heavier moment in a second. So you're trying to find, where does the pull come from? Can you feel the connection of your obliques to initiate that movement? Last 2. And then set that strap down, grab the strap that's more behind you, turn to face completely to the side, holding onto the strap with the outside hand first, then lace the other hand inside and going into your rotation. Exhaling to rotate and inhale to return. So as you're rotating, you're trying to lift up really tall, pulling up through the low abs to feel like you're making the pelvis taller and connecting between the sits bones behind you. As you're moving, keep checking in that you're not moving from the arms, but you're instead moving from the obliques. Two more. And last one. Take the strap in the inside arm, which is that shoulder rest arm, push across the diagonal and bend the arm to come back to the front. You can add the other arm straight and reaching around yourself, trying to create more rotation, pressing around and reaching back across. As you continue and do a couple more, trying to feel like you're lifting taller, opening the arms. Your head is kind of floating up out of these arm movements, getting longer through the torso. Last one. And bringing the carriage back in, put the strap down, step off the reformer to the side, and we're gonna leave the foot bar down. If you take your platform out and put it on the floor near the foot of the reformer is that thing that it's resting on. I know that seems obvious, but it should be basically touching that foot. We're gonna switch to one red spring. You're gonna stand on the platform and put your foot against the shoulder rest. If you have tight hips or a low reformer, you might need to decide differently. So if you're really tall, you might not need to stand on this platform. If you're on a low reformer, you wouldn't need to stand on the platform. So what I want is that when you level your hips and hinge into a neutral position through your spine on an incline, that your knees are close to each other. So one's not like a foot in front of the other, but they're not maybe right in line with each other. They're just close-ish. And then from that glute connection we've been working on, you're pushing out and pulling back in. As you push and pull, we can add our arms, reaching the arms. You can be creative. I just want to add your arms moving. Your body is not moving forward and back. You're totally still. Lots of standing hip work, pressing out and pulling back in. You could try to do one arm forward, one arm back. You could try to rotate your head, which is going to be a lot harder to balance. So whatever feels good to you in terms of the arms. Neck is long. One more. And then come back in and take the platform, put it on the reformer over the rails. Kneel with one side of your body on the platform and then put the other side on the carriage. Press out through the arms and legs, stretching open, neutral, and then round your back and flex up into your cat back. And pressing out, lengthening, round the pelvis under, stretch up into your cat back. Lengthen, tail to head. Extend, round the pelvis to scoop up that greyhound belly again. As you press out, you lengthen to neutral. As you come in, you flex. As you press out, you lengthen to neutral. And flex to come in last time. Lengthening out and rounding and coming back in. Step off of there first, off the carriage side first is going to be safer. And take the platform off, put the platform on the other side on the floor. And once you're there, you're going to keep the platform close to the foot bar end of the reformer so that you have more room to adjust. Find level pelvis, find your hips even, connect through the outer hip, hover the carriage knee, and then push and pull. Once you've got that going, see if you can add your arms, swinging. They could go in opposition. You could turn your head as your arms go in opposition, which it challenges your balance quite a bit. Keeping the pelvis from rotating open as you press, so both hips stay forward. As you push out, think of connecting a little bit more through those oblique abdominals. Could try circling the arms. Last 3, 2, and last 1. And then come back in. And then you take the platform, you're gonna put it over the springs again. Kneel on the platform first, then on the carriage, lengthen through the spine, press the carriage out, then round your back up to pull it in. Do that a couple times. I'm just watching here. Yeah, nice. So try to make it so you go from tail to head out, then from tail curling under, you round and come in. If your knees are too far forward, you won't feel like you can articulate your back very well. So you're really as far back as there's room on the reformer without you feeling like you're falling off. Yeah, if the knees are forward, it's going to be really hard to articulate. Last 2, rounding, scooping and lifting, and pressing out. Nice carry, and bringing it all the way back in. Awesome. So then you can step off of the reformer, and you're going to stand on the side, and you're going to step 1 foot up onto the platform, and then step the other foot up onto the platform. And we're gonna put our foot where we want it for our side splits. So toes in line with each other, level pelvis, even through the torso. Press out from the outer hips and open the arms and close the arms. And as you do this a couple times, be careful that you're not slightly letting the pelvis tip forward. Nobody's gonna look exactly like I am, I'm exaggerating, but the tendency is to kind of tip forward as you press out so that the quads can take over. So bring one hand to the front of the pelvis, one hand to the lower back. As you press out, that shouldn't change. Your bones shouldn't change. If that's not helpful to have your hands there, then pick someplace else for them. Feeling like you're constantly pulling up through the front of the pelvis and pulling up. One more time. Squeezing back in. Bend the knees, squat, basically. You can be in a squat where you're hinged forward, or you can be in plie where you're vertical. Vertical is a little harder. Push out through the legs, so your torso is still in the middle. Most of you just moved the leg on the carriage. Your body needs to be between both legs. And then push the carriage away to stand up. Bend the knees to come down. The carriage isn't moving. The carriage isn't moving. Woo, try to hold the carriage still. If it moves a millimeter, you're doing really well. But if it's moving inches, then try to use your outer hips a little bit more. Stand all the way up to vertical each time. Don't let the carriage come in on you. The carriage is staying out. Don't move the carriage. I'm getting a little bit of, as you're straightening up, you're kind of pushing your butts back. So see if you can pull yourself up really vertical. If the carriage is moving, this just tells you that it's too heavy and 1 red is too heavy for you. And so next time I say 1 red for side splits, do 3/4. And then bend the knees and stay, and then pumping the carriage leg out. Each time you push and pull, you're trying to not let everything on the standing side move around on you. 4, 3, 2, and last 1. Step onto the platform, turn towards the shoulder rest, stand, find your balance there, nod your chin, and start to roll through your spine. You can bend your knees wherever you need to. You're rolling down towards the carriage. Let your head hang for a second. And then drop through the back of the pelvis, push down through the heels to roll back up. So we're gonna do that a couple times. If this is too scary, or you're not able to articulate, instead, you could kneel here and roll down through the upper spine primarily. It'd be a lot more gentle on you, so you decide. But obviously, I want you to be safe, so make sure you're safe. So you're rolling through the spine. On your next one, you're gonna put your hands on the carriage, Walk them forward. The carriage can move, so bring your knees down without moving the carriage out. Walk the hands forward, yeah. And then you're gonna walk your hands back, transfer your weight to your feet. So it should be about 4 steps to go forward, about 4 steps to come back. You'll have to move your hands to the outside of the shoulder rest unless you're on the more petite side. You'll need that space. Rolling down. Whenever you can, touch the carriage, your knees bend, your hands walk forward, you transfer yourself to your knees. Your hands are way forward towards the headrest, outside of the shoulder rest, yeah. And then walking back, transfer your weight back up. That's right. And one more time, you're gonna roll through the spine. We're gonna add to this in a minute, but for now, just same thing. Walk your hands out, find your safety moments where you're in control and you're making sure that the carriage isn't going to move out of control. And then transfer your weight back to your feet, roll yourself back up. And once you're back up, you're going to turn to face the second side, feet in line with each other. Be careful as you're transferring your weight onto the carriage. Start with the arms and legs opening, keeping that awareness through the lower back and the pelvis, that you're not letting the pelvis spill forward. You're keeping that sense of lift through the front of the pelvis, length through the back of the spine, lower back. Last 2. And last one. The carriage comes in, you stay in neutral and stay vertical if you like, or you can squat, but you're gonna push the carriage out a little bit. Hold it where it is as you go in and out of your squat. Feel your weight as centered as possible, squat or plie, whichever is better for you today. And as you go down, trying to not let the carriage move. Dana, see if you can keep your carriage really still as your legs straighten. Yes. And now as you come back up, don't let the carriage move. Lots of work through those outer hips. Nice, everyone. Down and press yourself up and down and press yourself up. One more time, going down and press yourself up. Then you're gonna bend your knees, hold the carriage still, pump from the carriage leg without moving the platform leg. Push and pull. So it's like half of a skating motion. Push and pull and push and pull. 4 more. 4, 3, 2, and last one. Bring the carriage in. Press through the back of the legs to stand up. Step onto the platform. You can do either what we did earlier, or you can add to this with me. So nod your chin, you start to roll down. You're gonna walk your hands forward, transfer your knees down. Find your leg pull front prep position. Hover your knees up, staying neutral, taking a few breaths, pushing the floor away, lengthen through the curves of the spine. Set the knees back down. Walk the hands back, transfer your weight back to your feet. Push down through the back of the leg, lift through the front of the pelvis to roll back up to standing. And again, nod the chin, roll through the spine. Walking the hands out, carriage is still. Transferring the knees down. Inhale, lengthen. As you exhale, wrap around your center, hover your knees up. If you'd like, you could push your legs out and bend and come back in, but obviously you need to have a good foothold. So if you're sliding around, don't do it. Push and pull. And when you've done a few of those, set your knees down, walk your hands back, and roll yourself back up. We're gonna do one more of those. And round through the spine, nod the chin, lengthen through the back of the legs, walk the hands forward, 2, knees go down, 3, and 4. Inhale, connect the abs, float your upper body off, push out, bend the knees, or just hover. Totally fine if you just hover. Last moment. Set the knees down. Sit back towards your heels. Take a little stretch into length here. And then you're going to turn around. You're going to put yourself onto the side, forearm plank on the platform. Knees are going to come up against the shoulder rest. Generally, these springs will work for everybody, but if you need to adjust, feel free. So you're trying to not sag here. Push the carriage away. Float your knees and hips, your hips up by pushing down through the knees, and then set the hips back down. So push down into the shoulder, connect your glutes to press up. You can add your arm reaching up, and then lower the hips, and do that a few times. Lifting up into length, good, and setting it down. Push down through that bottom shoulder, hover up. You're trying to make a forearm plank, so you're not trying to curve your spine, you're trying to be straight, which is hard because it's a very low position. One more time, lift, pushing down through the bottom arm, and then set the hips back down. Extend the top leg out to straight. Flex your foot, 2 kicks forward, forward, point, sweep back. Forward, forward. As you press back, you could lift your hips up. Lower down to go forward, forward, lift. Or just stay down the whole time. Lift. 3 more. Forward, reach back, and forward. Reach back. Last one. Forward, and reach back. Bend your leg in. Push yourself up onto your arms. Stack your knees like a mermaid kind of position. You're just gonna side bend and push the platform away. It's not a huge stretch. My hand is sliding a little bit, but I know I'm not gonna slide suddenly. So just feel where you need to be. Make sure you're not gonna tip the platform. So you're pushing, or you can push against the wood. Big kind of lengthening through the top side of the torso. You can rotate a little towards the floor, to the side, to the ceiling. Could do a big circle of the arm, and then come all the way back in and flip yourself over to the other side. So knees are against the shoulder rest, just so your legs can't slide suddenly, and pushing down through your forearm, pressing your hips up, connecting between the sits bones. Top arm can reach the ceiling, and then lower your hips back down. Connect your glutes to press forward and up so that you get into that coronal plane, and lower down that kind of toaster oven slot position, that you're between the 2 sides of the toaster oven and not going to get burned. And setting your hips down, and connect to press the floor away and lift yourself up, and set it down. One more time. Push the floor away. Connect through the shoulder, hover the hips up. Feel like your abdominals are working to hold you there. And then set the hip back down. Reach the top leg out. Flex your foot, 2 kicks forward, forward, sweep the leg back. As you sweep the leg back, you can either keep the hips down, or you can push the floor away and lift the pelvis up. Forward, forward, sweep back. Try to still up the carriage as much as you can. Going to move a little, but you're trying to minimize that movement. Forward, forward, sweep back, and long through the neck and the spine. 3 more. Forward, forward. As you press back, you can lift the bottom side of the pelvis. 2, sweeping back, and last one. And bend the leg in. Bring yourself up onto your hand. Push the platform away, go into a lengthening of the top side. You can add a little bit of rotation in either direction. You could circle an arm. You can do that a couple times, kind of finding where it feels good, where there's little islands of compression or tightness that you want to focus on this week to move through. And then coming all the way back in. Awesome. So then you're going to kneel, feet up against the shoulder rest, and your hands on the platform. So lots of options here. You can push the carriage out just to where you're neutral, and stay and hold. You could stay here, or you can try to take one hand off and put it back down, and then take the other hand off and put it back down. You don't have to reach it forward. It doesn't have to go to straight. You're just trying to play around with how do you keep your body centered while you're making the 4 points go to 3 points. And each time your hand sits back down, it's tempting to put it in the middle. Try not to let that happen. Nice. And then from here, both hands down. You also can wrap your hands around the side if that's more comfortable. And if you'd like, you can hover the knees up and do a few leg extensions here, pushing out, pulling in. If that's not going to work for you today, that's totally fine. You could just do a single leg extension, keeping the other knee down and alternating. Take a break if you're pumping the legs out and in. Bring the carriage in, set the knees down. So the endurance of your deeper stabilizing muscles is what I want to target. So it's not that you couldn't keep going forever. It's more that would you be going forever with your deep stabilizers working? And that's the part that I think is hard to know. So feel that connection into the back of the shoulders, connect around your waist, float the knees up, and then as you press out, you should feel your glutes working. Your body shouldn't shift forward. Your abs should still be working. I think it's very reasonable that you could do 4 to 6, but more than that, I'd be curious if you'd be able to keep the connections happening. Yeah. When you've had enough of those, sit back into your little shell stretch, taking a few breaths, opening through the back, like kind of where we started. And then you can take the platform and set it down on the floor so it's out of your way. And switch to 1.5 springs and bring your foot bar up. Double check that the foot bar is locked. It's always a good habit to get into. Stand up carefully with your hands first on the foot bar, and then feet up against the shoulder rest to work back to our elephant position. So keeping that connection through the back of the legs, you're gonna feel your weight between the 4 points, 2 arms, 2 legs. You're not gonna shift forward or back. You're not gonna shift side to side. The pelvis is as far over the feet as you have hamstring length to achieve. Round your back a little bit more, Dana. Yeah. And then as you lift one leg, I want you to do it trying to stay in the center. So try to connect to the back of the hip. So from here, you're just doing a single leg elephant. So little push out, little pull in. You're not bending the knee. So if you have tight hamstrings and you need to lift your heel, you could, but try to keep that leg, the push coming from the top of the hamstring. Keep the pelvis level. And then set that foot down. We're gonna add to this. This is something you can come back to if what I add ends up being too hard. So find your center between the right and the left, lift the other side. And then as you push out and pull in, you're keeping your torso really stable, not letting yourself shift side to side. One more. Set that foot down. Shouldn't feel like your hands are really tired and your shoulders are really tired, because most of the weight is back in the pelvis. So at any point, it should feel like you can't, but you almost could take your hands off. So then from there, lift the first leg again and lift it up. Only lift it as high as you can keep your round back. So you're still scooping. Your leg is actively straight. Lower the leg, lift the leg. Only lift as high as you can keep round through your back. Lower and lift. Yes, lower and lift. Then as you lower and lift, we're going to move the carriage. So the carriage is going to go out as your leg lowers, and you pull up on the abs as the carriage comes in and the leg lifts. Carriage goes out, you pull up on the abs as the leg lifts up. Lower and lift. And lower and lift. 3 more. 3. Keep both elbows straight. 2. Trying to go full range with that leg in the air. And last one, lift the leg, bend it back in, set that foot down. Find your centeredness again. And the other leg is gonna lift behind the shoulder rest, then up as high as you can stabilize. Push out and pull in. The leg will lower towards the shoulder rest as the carriage goes out. As the carriage goes in, the leg lifts. You should feel your outer hip of your standing leg. You should feel some work right under the glute. Try to not make it kind of sharp, but try to make it smooth and fluid so the leg doesn't suddenly kind of bounce up in the air. It smoothly presses through space. Push and pull. Grace, reverse the carriage so that you're lifting the leg as the carriage comes in. Yes. And now everybody focus on rounding your back because that's part of what I think gets lost. Last two. And last one. Bringing your leg back down. You can come down onto your knees. 2 to 2.5 springs. And bend your elbows, round your back. Your hands could come off the bar and you wouldn't just fall over. So 2/3 of your weight, a lot of your weight is back. Hands on the foot bar, elbows are bent towards the springs. Push out and pull in. And as you push and pull, to me, it feels like I could almost hover my knees off the carriage right now because there's not a lot of weight going down into them. You always have the option of coming up into the intermediate version, but I want round back. I want the butt tucked under. And it should feel like you're pushing and pulling, pushing and pulling, push, pull. The arms are bracing. 3, 2, and last one, bring the carriage back in. Lengthen your spine into a little bit of supported extension, pushing down into the bar, lifting your spine up, and then round your back. One more set of those knee stretches. Push out, pull in, push, pull. Nice, Anne. Good, Martina. 3, 2, and last one. Bring the carriage back in. Take any extra springs off so you only have 2 springs. And today, try single leg stretch with your foot on the rail. If you're really tight, it won't work, but this is sort of the in-between of standing on the floor or being on the high bar. So your foot's on the rail, push out through the back leg, connect to that back hip, and then come back in. It's meant to be heavy. So make sure if you adjust your springs because you're more petite, that's fine, but you should still feel like it's heavy for your physique. Connecting to the glute, trying to push through the front leg as much as you can. And then you're gonna switch over to the second leg. When you're done with that, pushing out, opening the hips, connecting your glutes. So the back glute is pushing out against the springs so that it helps you to open the front of the hip. One more time on this time, try to press the front leg a little bit more towards straight. Your arms are pushing like crazy, so it's fine if your foot slides a little because your arms are helping you control it. And then you're gonna come all the way back in and come off of there, and you're all done. Good job.